Teachers as change agents, improving students' motivation, self-efficacy, and achievement. A professional development video presentation for EDLR 682 by Dan Pio, Assistant Principal at Weah Ridge Middle School in Lafayette, Indiana. John Pinson, Assistant Principal at Kokomo High School.
Candy Van Buskirk, Principal at Michigan City High School.
Shelley Wilfong, Chief Analytics Officer, Warsaw Community Schools.
One of the 10 behaviors, or mind frames, that John Hattie and Klaus Zierer suggest educators should adopt to improve student achievement by changing the way teachers think about learning and their role in the classroom, is that teachers are change agents and believe that all students can improve. Hattie and Zierer suggest that learning is based on perceptions of students, their teachers, and their parents. For instance, if students believe they can learn something, that positively impacts their ability to learn. Similar notions are true for teachers and parents too. Self-efficacy, as defined by psychologist Albert Bandura, is one's belief in one's ability to succeed in specific situations or to accomplish a task. As we build that belief within our students, we also need to find ways to build their motivation. As depicted in this diagram, the perceptions of these groups of people need to be balanced, especially when they are negative, with building self-efficacy and motivation. When we examine this mind frame in conjunction with Mike Schmoker's focus, Carol Dweck's mindset, and Angela Duckworth's grit, we find that many different ways to offset negative perceptions and build capacity within students. In order for teachers to reach students and build their self-efficacy and motivation, and truly become change agents, there are several factors from the meta-analyses conducted within Hattie's visible learning research that can be used. Good classroom management, with an effect size of 0.52, sets the stage for everything else that happens within a teacher's sphere of influence. Its opposite, boredom, had an effect size of negative 0.49. Engagement is the prerequisite to any success in the classroom. Building good classroom management has a lot to do with teachers successfully building relationships with their students. Advanced organizers, with an effect size of 0.41, bridge the gap between what students know and what they are going to learn, providing them a boost of confidence before moving into another area of learning. Teachers who take time to find or create good advanced organizers can make a big impact on student achievement. While problem-based learning has a relatively low effect size of 0.15, it makes sense to mention it in reference to teachers acting as change agents. Problem-based learning, in this sense, is more of an action for the teacher than for the students. Lastly, motivation, with an effect size of 0.48, ties into how students are motivated without external stimuli. Determining how to motivate students is not a one-size-fits-all approach and relates back into building relationships and classroom management. We can use growth mindset from Dweck not to label types of students, but to describe how we as people are made up of both fixed and growth components, and by using the growth type language and expectations to motivate students and to build up the belief in themselves that they can learn and succeed. As change agents, it is important for teachers to remember what we are teaching by examining our curricula and prioritizing the things that we teach. To do that, we will examine Mike Schmoker's book, Focus, Elevating the Essentials to Radically Improve Student Learning.
Focus. Elevating the Essentials to Radically Improve Student Learning by Mike Schmoker. Mike Schmoker's book, Focus, maintains that successful schools focus on three known elements: simplicity, clarity, and priority. By using the concept of addition by subtraction with our teaching and curriculum, we will be able to create more effective classroom instruction and increase student achievement. Schmoker laments that we in education tend to complicate what needs to be simple. Education isn't the only industry in which this is an issue. In fact, there are many authors that have addressed the need to simplify the complicated in order to be successful. As Smoker points out, Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about the art of ignoring and focusing on doing one thing well. Jeffrey Pfeiffer and Robert Sutton in The Knowing-Doing Gap discusses the need to consistently clarify and refine priorities well. Marcus Buckingham in the book Lopsided Focus states that companies can accomplish more by doing less. Know thy impact. John Hattie's now famous meta-analysis on effect sizes on various approaches to learning shows that almost everything we do has some positive impact on student achievement. However, it is important to emphasize that some approaches to learning have more impact than others. This begs the question, where should our priorities be, and how do we make this determination? With so many programs, standards, curriculum guides, interventions, instructional methods, and so on, how do we ensure that what we are doing is the most effective strategy? In order to focus on the simplicity and clarity and then prioritize, we must know the impact of our teaching on the learning of our students. Again, a quote by John Hattie reiterates the importance of simplicity, clarity, and priority when he says the variability in student outcomes is the consequence of the variability in teacher effectiveness. We must focus on that variability in teacher effectiveness to ensure that students have the outcomes that we want. As John Hattie says, every student deserves a great teacher, not by chance, but by design. This is certainly true in all industries, not just in education, as evidenced by the hospital checklist example in the book. A hospital was having a lot of issues with parents getting post-op infections that were preventable once they implemented a checklist procedure prior to the start of each operation. Post-op infections decreased dramatically. They didn't have to have any complicated professional development. They didn't need any type of complicated procedure, just a checklist that everyone went through together to ensure everyone was doing everything the same way every time. This leads us to what we teach. In a moment, we're going to look at this in more detail. How is it that we implement a guaranteed and viable curriculum for all students? And then finally, we will take a look at how we teach, mastering this art of structurally sound instruction.
While there are many trends in education involving ways to deliver content and the types of projects that students should be doing, Mike Schmoker argues that literacy is the most important piece of the puzzle that all disciplines need to prioritize. One of the primary responsibilities as educators is to find ways to help students read texts of increasing length and complexity. We can build capacity in reading comprehension, summarizing, and other skills by having students simply read and answer questions. We can also increase their motivation by providing things to read that align with their interests in different subject areas. Rather than trying to focus on a multitude of standards, educators should concentrate their efforts on teaching fewer standards to greater depths of student understanding. In order to decide which standards are the most important, Schmoker points us to Doug Reeves' suggestion of 3 criteria to consider. Endurance. Can this standard provide enduring knowledge beyond just being prepared for a test? Leverage. Can this standard be applied to multiple content areas? And readiness for the next level. Does this standard give students the tools they need to succeed in the next month, quarter, semester, or even year? As we focus our curricula, we can begin to pull lessons from our mind frame and from Angela Duckworth's work in Grit to begin to think about how we teach our students.
John Hattie describes an important teacher line. I am the change agent and believe all students can. To achieve this, we will first outline 3 significant factors for teacher effectiveness in the classroom: classroom management, advanced organization, and problem-based learning. Classroom management is most effective when preventative strategies are used and a culture culture of trust and fairness are built. A teacher's focus and presence on the lesson at hand is crucial, while using nonverbal signs to deal with classroom disruptions. It is also important to keep pace and maintain a group focus at most times. When needing to address smaller groups or individuals, give the other students a task related to the current learning. Most important, make the learning relevant to the students so they may understand the why of learning the material. Advanced organization of the lesson goes beyond the listing of standards and concepts. Here, teachers should ask, what do they already know? What do they need to learn? What gaps between what they know and what they need to know exist? And how do I reduce that gap? Problem-based learning is the vehicle with which teachers make learning relevant. Problem-based learning can be used to spark students' interests or passions and flip the mindset of learning to an intrinsic motivator. We'll focus a bit more on the learning process. Angela Duckworth points out in her book, Grit, that first comes interest. Passion begins with intrinsically enjoying what you do. She also points out from her research that people perform better at work when what they do interests them. This is the conclusion of another meta-analysis of over 60 studies conducted over 60 years. If students are going to be intrinsically motivated to learn, connections must be made to their interests, or at least made relevant by showing practical application. The ability to make learning relevant comes from knowing the curriculum and understanding the students' needs and interests. Research shows forming positive classroom relationships between teachers and students is an important process of making learning intrinsic, relevant, and meaningful. Last, we will focus on checking for understanding. While engaged in the lesson, checking for understanding and making real-time modifications is crucial to drive instruction in the classroom. A teacher should ask for feedback, have students solve small problems, or have them work in pairs to gather formative information. This information, collected while learning is happening, leads to clarifying misconceptions, defining and filling in gaps of understanding, and also allows students time to practice and reinforce. And at every grade level.
In conclusion, we have learned that teachers are the key to student success. They are the true change agents. We know that if teachers believe students can learn, then students believe they can learn. If teachers engage students in meaningful work, we know that students are motivated. If teachers have good classroom management, this too increases students' motivation and engagement. Not only is student engagement key, but we have also learned that successful schools have 3 key factors in place. That is, their education is simple, clear, and prioritized. They do one thing well. We've learned that literacy is the #1 priority. We have also learned that student-teacher relationships increase engagement and motivation, which leads to increased achievement. We hope you have enjoyed our professional development on teachers as change agents. Thank you.